everyone, and welcome to the LatinX Business Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Gomez, and if you're looking to demystify the world of business through the raw, authentic stories of LatinX entrepreneurs, you've come to the right place. As someone with an MBA and an IRS enrolled agent license, I've spent years helping freelancers, partnerships, and S corporations navigate the often tricky waters of the U.S. tax law. Now, I'm bringing that expertise and passion to this community right here. So thank you for tuning in, and you know what? It's time to talk business. Hi, Eddie. How are you this morning?
Hello. Good afternoon over here. Probably good morning over there. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, good morning over here. It's in the morning. We're in California and you're in Kansas. Good afternoon to you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show. I'm very appreciative of you taking the time of the day. Your time is very valuable. So the fact that you agreed to come on the show, I'm just really thankful at this point. Just want you to know that it's very much appreciated.
Oh, thanks. No. I appreciate you reaching out. I think you said you found us on Instagram, so I think that's cool. So I appreciate the support and glad to be able to share our story on another platform. So thank you. And I appreciate what you're doing for the community as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, let's get right into it. First couple questions are kind of housekeeping items. So the first question I always ask everyone is, what's your preferred pronoun and why? Or what do you like to go by?
Mine's pretty simple. It's just he, him. You can just call me Eddie. I don't have any nicknames. It's not Eduardo. Most people, being Hispanic, think it's Eduardo and Eddie for short. It's not. So
that's funny. I was about to ask.
I had a feeling. I get that asked a lot more. So it's pretty straightforward.
All right. Cool. So we'll go by he, him, and then Eddie. So another question I ask people within the Latinx community: how do you identify?
Within the Latinx community?
Yeah. And the reason I ask is because different generations will use certain terms versus others, right? So some people are comfortable using Hispanic or Latino or Latinx or Chicano, Chicana, Mexican American. So, then maybe why you choose the one that you feel comfortable with.
Oh, yes. I've always gone by Mexican American, but to me, it really doesn't bother me if it's Hispanic, if it's Latin, if it's Latinx, because as you know, I think by now a lot of us are still confused by what's the difference by all of them. So but when I tell people, I always tell them I'm first generation Mexican American because my parents are both Mexican and I was born in the US, so I think it describes it perfect. Mexican American.
Got it. Yeah, and that's super fair. To be honest, I think that you are right. A lot of Latinos and Latinas out here struggle with what term to use. But what I have come to find is that it depends really on your generation. Like in the 90s, the term Chicano, Chicana was very in, at least in the West Coast, right? Because there's a difference between the West Coast and the East Coast. The type of Latinos that live there, right? And how the migration patterns work. And that's the good thing about, being a Latino or being a part of the Latinx community now, because if you identify as a Latina, Latino, Mexican American, they're all valid forms, right? I think at the end of the day, you get to choose how you identify and what fits more comfortable with you and your background. So, and in terms of like where your family is from, your origins, like what's your heritage? Tell me a little bit about that.
Both my parents were born in rural cattle ranches in northern state of Mexico called Chihuahua. A very rural area, and it's near the Copper Canyon, near Las Barrancas del Cobre. I don't know if you heard of them before. Barrancas del Cobre is 3 times bigger and steeper than the Grand Canyon. So when we talk about La Sierra, like it's another level Sierra.
Okay. You know what? I think I have heard of it, but I have never myself been there because when I've been to Mexico, we drive, or when we were little, we would drive down there, right? It's more economical to take the whole family in a car ride versus 6 airplane tickets, right? But we've never really stopped in Chihuahua, but I know it's a huge, huge desert, which actually connects to the desert in California. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I've heard of the Copper Canyon. So have you been there yourself?
I have. My family's from the south part of the canyon, and there's even a famous train called El Chepe that you get in the capital of Chihuahua, and it goes right through La Sierra, right through the heart, and then it will take you all the way to Los Mochis, Sinaloa. It'll end up at the Pacific Ocean. I've taken it almost halfway to there and back, so I didn't make it all the way to Los Mochis. But it's, like I mentioned, it's stunning, I think. And then you're close to Basasiachi, which I think is like the tallest waterfall in North America as well. So it's beautiful. And yes, you're correct. Half the state's pretty much a desert, and the other half is just mountains.
You know what? Now that you mentioned El Chepe, someone mentioned it to me. So this last weekend I was in Guadalajara, and someone was like, "You need to do this tour," and they mentioned it to me, and they sent me the link, but like I haven't gotten to it because I got back, and then I have like 100 emails I have to respond to, right? But no, I did hear about it. So it goes from one part of Chihuahua all the way to the coast. That's awesome. That's probably something you can do.
It cuts through Sinaloa, and it's just beautiful. I mean, the mountain range and everything. And like I said, but my family were from the south part near Bayesa, near Huachochi. Start from the other end, but yeah, it is beautiful. But if you do decide to go, let me know. I can tell you how to get there and where to go. I also have family in Parral, Chihuahua, which is a very historical city. It's where Pancho Villa was killed.
Oh.
And it's a cute little mining town that's very underrated, but it's really pretty too.
Is it a pueblo mágico?
You know, they've been wanting it to register it a lot, but for some reason it hasn't gone through. I think, I don't know, quote unquote, it could be, I don't know why they've actually struggled. I mean, there has been a lot of violence with narcotraficantes, so that could be why they're struggling to make it a pueblo mágico. But in reality, it should be, because it's, like I said, it's a cute little mining town. It's Santa Barbara, which is like one of the oldest towns in Chihuahua, is near there. Mining was there, and it's like little streets. Like you almost feel like you're in Europe.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you know, it's funny. Like all these small towns in Mexico, even the Pueblo Mágicos, you know, I love visiting any pueblo that I have a chance to visit when I'm out there. And so in Guadalajara, Tequila, obviously it's a Pueblo Mágico. So I went there, but it's extremely influenced by the Europeans and the conquistadores, right? Like they brought all those influences over from Europe. So I could totally see that. But in the desert, that would be a really good, interesting sight to see.
Yeah. Have you been to Tasco in Guerrero?
Tasco and Guerrero. Oh, just Guerrero's in southern, right? Southern Mexico, where
yeah. Tasco's a gorgeous little mining town, también known for its silver, and they kept the tradition, también, with the little streets and all the houses are white. But where my family lives in Parral, it's kind of similar to Tasco, so it's really cute.
Okay. Well, if I make it out there, I'll definitely make it a point to let you know, so you can guide me through where to stay or what to check out while I'm there. Because you know, it's so funny. There's so many little towns out there, and they're all beautiful. They have their own little specialties, and there's always something to do. So, especially if they're like day trips, you know, from a big city as well. I think it's very helpful when you're traveling out there.
Yeah. I think a lot of people just think Chihuahua is a big desert. They're like, Juarez, and that's it. And I'm just like, no, like, you should look up Las Barrancas del Cobre. It's like huge, you know, and then you got the Tarahumara influence, which is enormous. And then you got the mountains. And then now you have all the little mining towns también, and it's different. It's definitely way different than, you can feel being different there than any part of Mexico, that's for sure.
Yeah. You know what's funny that you say that? On one of the rides back from Mexico to the US, I think it started snowing on us right from Chihuahua, I think from the capital to Juarez. And I remember being like, I don't know, like 14 years old or something. And it was just like, oh my God, we're in the middle of nowhere. But Chihuahua itself, I was pretty amazed, you know, because I never had seen Ortaga snow with the desert.
Yeah, that's the other thing that people are amazed. They're like, whoa, it snows? I'm like, yeah. Like, there's elevation. It snows every year. Like, I'm in Kansas. It snows here every year, right? And they're like, I didn't even know it snowed in Mexico. And I was like, yeah, I tried being down there, and there's no heater, no electricity. It's a whole different in some parts.
Yeah, dude, I'm from LA, so come on, let's think about the weather here.
I know. You guys were probably like completely shocked.
I was just like, what is going on? Are we gonna die? Like, my dad's like, we'll be fine.
That's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, okay, you know, so tell me a little bit about how Chihuahua inspired your business, your journey, or your start in creating Pinole Blue.
Yeah. I mean, we got on the topic with Chihuahua. So my parents being from Chihuahua, my dad migrated. Well, my dad actually first came as a citrus picker in Florida, and then I think he went up to Virginia to pick apples. That was the first time he came. He came contracted as a farm labor.
Yeah.
And later he came to the Midwest, where some of his relatives were already at, in Nebraska and Kansas. And he was working in construction, married my mom, and they moved to a rural small town in north central Kansas. And when I say small town, you being from LA, we mean small. We don't even have a gas station. We don't even have a red light. We were the only Hispanic family from when I was the only Hispanic kid in the high school from kindergarten to graduation. 32 kids in my graduating class.
Yikes. Okay. Yeah, we got to talk about that in a bit.
That's what we mean by small town out here. Very rural area. And anyways, growing up, we would go to Chihuahua twice a year in the summer and for Christmas break. And we were always bringing back pinole, because you couldn't find it here, obviously, in our small town and the small areas. Yeah. And my dad, being from la Sierra, he even knows how to speak the language of the Tarahumaras or Raramoris. And the Tarahumaras or Raramoris are known for running 50 to 100 miles up in the mountains with sandals, chanclas made out of tires, while drinking pinole with water. They've even brought them to the U.S. to compete in 100-mile races. These guys were running, drinking pinole, and smoking a cigarette on top of the mountain, beating the top athletes of the world. There's a book called Born to Run. I highly recommend it. And then there's a Netflix documentary on Lorena Ramirez, the ultra-foot woman. Lorena is from near the municipio de Huachochi, which is real next to the municipio de Valleza. And like I said, my dad growing up in that area también, he knew how to speak Tarahumara. He was drinking pinole. He learned a lot of things from them. And so that's why we were always drinking pinole in the summer, because my dad works in road construction. And he says there's nothing more refreshing on a hot summer day than a cold cup of water with pinole. And as I was growing up and I was working in landscaping and I would help him out with construction, I discovered that he was right. Even though it's corn, you would think it'd make you thirstier, but the corn really settles in your stomach well, and the water's hydrating you. And corn being carbohydrates, your body will turn it into energy. And that's kind of how we got the idea. And I moved, after graduating high school, I moved to Wichita, Kansas, to go to school at Wichita State University. And when I moved here, Wichita's a mid-sized city, and you still couldn't find pinole. And there's a big Hispanic population here. And that's when I was just like, I think if these people can't find pinole, and a lot of endurance athletes want to drink pinole because now that they heard about it from the book Born to Run, but they can't find it, I think I'm onto something. And I was in college, and I found this blue corn supplier in Mexico, in Chihuahua. And I told the idea to a professor, and she convinced me Christmas break to drive to La Frontera. I met my primo, my cousin. I brought back half a ton of corn in the back of my pickup, and I started in my garage while living in the dorm room. And that's how it started.
Yeah. How was that experience of crossing with that much corn in the back of your truck? Were you stopped? Did you have to speak to customs? Because, they pretty much stop a lot of people at the border who are trying to bring in seeds and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. So I'm still not an expert by any chance in importation, exportation, but I did, through power of Google, I found a broker. And that broker, I explained to them what we wanted to do, and she made sure to call a broker on the Mexican side as well to make sure we knew to get all my questions answered. And they were able to fix everything for me. So when I showed up, I already had the paperwork. And it was funny because I still had to go through the commercial line. I go through a small border in Chihuahua, through Ojinaga, because it's closer to where my family's from. And it's funny because there's all these semis carrying like huge loads of corn or frijol and chile, and then there's just me in my pickup with 10 costales in the back. And I know what seemed like forever, it was probably just like an hour. I was just there like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, they were checking everything, and they're like, why are you carrying this? What's it for? And I have to explain to them, like, for real, I'm about to start a pinole business with this corn precisely. And that was it. They let me go after about an hour, and it was pretty easy. But like I said, it was a small amount, but once you get bigger and cost and everything, then but I always recommend people try to look for a broker, at least for a broker on the U.S. side that can help you, because most brokers on the U.S. side have a connection probably with a broker on the Mexican side.
Got it. Yeah, because there's certain amounts, there's limits on like stuff you can bring in over. For example, like on the liquor, each person's allowed to bring over a maximum 4, right? Duty free type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, I was just at the airport, so thinking about the amount, the quantity you brought over, that's a lot for even for one person to bring over, right? So I'm like, there must be, were there fees involved that? So you had to pay the broker, I guess, to contact you with the broker in Mexico, but were there fees like reasonable, or do those vary based on, amount of supply you're bringing in? Is it a percentage that you pay,
It goes by the cost of your goods, really. I mean, 1,000 pounds of corn wasn't that much, so it was really cheap. I think we just had to pay the Mexican broker just to get us some papel, just to show where the corn was coming from. And I was lucky too, because the corn was already certified USDA organic. So I kind of had a leverage. That's why I said I'm not the best person to ask on this stuff. I've been kind of lucky, and I went through a border that I already knew, so it was. So that's why I'm not the best, but so that's how it started. But the broker on the US side, like I said, helped me tremendously. I learned a lot from them.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. So someone out there is trying to start like a business from, cross border from Mexico, US, they should definitely look into a broker. Like you said, so many people start their businesses without ever having any experience in it. That's definitely a good tip the listeners could take away with them. So tell me more about your products, right? Like you said Pinole, right? So we already described that. That's like an energy drink, but what are the other products that your company offers?
Yeah, so when we first started, we were just making Pinole. We had just the original roasted blue corn that a lot of people were used to, but the thing is, I think throughout all Latin America and especially Mexico, is most people use Pinole just to make atole or champurrado, to drink it warm. And like I said, in the north where we're from, we like to drink it cold, especially on hot days. And another thing that we like to make is these cookies. My family and in the region we're from, we call them coricos. They're just like polvorones, or just like, cookies, like reposteria, except they're made with corn. They don't have flour in them. And we started making coricos. We call them azulitas because it's made with the blue corn. And then we started making also these peanut butter no-bake cookies. And then about 2 years ago, we started the tortilla factory, and we started making blue corn stone ground tortillas. We make it the ancient process of nixtamalization, and they're stone ground. But the Pinole, we also developed 3 other mixes. We got 2 protein mixes, so if people want to make a shake, a smoothie, and that's a chocolate one, a sweetened one, and then like a cinnamon sugar one. And then we have an atole mix that's ready to go with the cinnamon sugar. All you do is add the warm milk, and bam, it's ready to go. But one thing about us is all our products are 100% organic, vegan, and gluten-free. It's always been part of our mission to give back part of our sales back to the Tarahumara community in Chihuahua. But on top of that, I wanted to make products that were a healthier alternative, that were still traditional, especially in the Mexican household and households in all Latin America también, that we're so familiar with, Like our atole mix, you add 2 tablespoons to a mug of milk. It only has 7 grams of sugar. Our cookies are gluten-free, So we're just trying to make things healthier, but still keep the tradition. And just last month, we rolled out the champurrado mix, and it's made with real cacao powder. It's definitely not as sweet as most of those super sweet Mexican hot chocolates we're used to, but it's real cacao, So it's having to really educate people and explain to them, like, hey, like the Hispanic or the Mexican Latinx community already is known for having a huge surge in diabetes and cholesterol. So let's try to make things healthier and more available.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's so funny. I think growing up, all the flavors, like in the Jamaicas or the fresh waters, like I've always remembered them being super sweet. And I don't know if that's just like a way to get the kids to drink it, that they end up putting a lot of, what is that sweetener called? It's like
Nestle, like leche Nestle?
Piloncillo, no, like they'll put piloncillo in
for sure.
Drink, and like it's really, really sweet. So as a kid, I loved it. I have a sweet tooth, But you're right, there is a high rate of diabetes in our community. So, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that like these products were gluten free, right? And that's important too, and then the sugar content. So if someone out there definitely is looking for a new product to try out, they should definitely check yours out. And, At the end of the show, I'll definitely in the notes have like your website and how people can reach out to you and connect with you. I think that is a really good. So you probably so in terms of like product lines, I see like maybe like what 5, 6 big ones, and then you have other little ones that branch out from those, right? How long have you had your business for?
So I competed in the Wichita State New Business Competition when I was in school. I went to school for finance. I really thought I was going to be working on Wall Street someday or being a financial analyst. I didn't think I'd be grinding corn the rest of my life. But I won the new business competition in 2017 in April. I graduated in May, and we officially started like towards the end of 2017. So we're in year 4. And like I said, we've evolved all these products, and this is kind of where we're at today.
So a question. So I know you say you started in your dorm room, right? Was it freshman, sophomore, senior year?
It was senior year because, like I said, we won the company. I went down to Mexico and brought the corn in December, that Christmas break of senior year, and it all started in the dorm room like in January, and we were just grinding. I was grinding pinole at my parents' house with a little molinito. And we'd put the pinole in a little brown lunch bag, and we put a little stamp on it. And I was just going to all the little Mexican stores, las carnicerias, the bakeries, las panerias. And I would travel. I would go to Kansas City. We went to Western Kansas, and I sold like over 300 pounds in 3 months. And that's when I was like, you know what? I think I need to take this more serious. And that's when I competed in the new business competition.
Oh, nice. So, in terms of you starting your actual business, when you started, so I guess now you have like a little manufacturing warehouse, right? Where all your products come out from. Talk to me a little bit about that experience. Was there any permits, and was it hard to start your warehouse? How has that journey been for you?
Yeah, I always get asked what was one of my early challenges, and I always tell them setting up as a food establishment, because I had no idea. I was a finance major. I knew nothing about food. I thought, I was like, you just Google how much calories are in it, and you make a cute little nutrition label, and you stick it on the back, you're good, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way. I had to ask some professors and some people, some colleagues, and I finally got a hold with another guy that made barbecue sauce in a little suburb near here, and that's where I went to talk to him, and he leased me some shared kitchen space. So that's where I was making the pinole at first, and he's the one that told me, hey, you got to talk to the health inspector. You got to make sure you have insurance, and then all your products, make sure you send them to the laboratory so you can get the nutrition label back. Yes. You got to put expiration date and all that stuff, and that's how I had to learn. And that's why I said, even though I graduated in May, it took almost to like October, November to finally get everything established and become a legal entity.
Right.
So that was, I don't know. For me, it seemed like it was taking forever. I just graduated and I'd been working and stuff, and here I am, not being able to even make a penny until I get all this established. So just trying to get all that ready before we launched, and then setting up an e-commerce platform as well. So that took some time. That was definitely a challenge. But like I said, I think for me it was the biggest because it was a space that I was unfamiliar with. Setting up an LLC and some minor accounting, that was pretty easy on my end, but the rest on the food part was definitely a challenge.
Yes. See, and that's good. And I feel like there's always a mentor, whether you hire help or you meet someone that is knowledgeable in the industry. Without their assistance or their help, you would not know what your next move is or what your next, legal compliance item is that you need to take care of, so much of my business is keeping my clients in compliance because I work with a lot of startups, right? And they don't know the requirements of starting an LLC or converting to an S corp, or why you want to convert to an S corp. So, and again, that's just the U.S. structure, right? So if you're working with international boundaries, then you got to figure out how the tax laws work in other countries as well, right? So you have to hire professionals there. But
yeah, so I think. And then you mentioned about the mentor, and I was going to say, yes, I think getting a mentor is very important, especially when you're going into a field that you're not very familiar with. Freshly out of college, I had no idea on that part. But like I said, the person that I rented the shared kitchen space really helped me a lot. Even the health inspectors kind of told me it's funny, the health inspector came out a day before I got inspected for something, and I just wrote down all the questions, like, what do I need to do, and that helps tremendously. But then from there, when I started a tortilla factory 2 years ago, I needed a bigger facility, and that's where I now have my own facility And this is where we make everything in-house. We make las tortillas, the pinole, las galletas. And what is funny is now I sublease to another friend. We made an office to where he roasts coffee, and then I lease to the guy that I had originally leased to, at least from in the beginning, because he had to move out también. So now he's leasing from me. So crazy how the things work
How
down
it
the
all
road.
works out. Yeah. You know, you have trust. You guys had built that trust within each other, and now you both are business owners, and you both can, you know, rely on each other for that mentorship and also for that additional help, right? So
Yeah, it's funny that it's good. We get along so well. Like he leaves some of his stuff here, I use some of his stuff, and we never have any issues. So it's great.
And so in terms of your team, how many people are on your team right now, helping you out with making all the products?
You know, right now I just have 2 employees. This summer we took a little bit of a hit where we had a bit of a slowdown, believe it or not. But last year, towards the middle of summer, we actually had a huge spike in business, and we had like 5 employees at one time. So we've had to downsize a little bit, but we're re-strategizing and thinking of different methods and kind of just going back to our basics to make sure everything's okay before we take another big leap in expansion.
Yeah, and so okay, talking about that topic then about expanding and, you know, even reducing employee size in your company, how was that for you? How did you handle that? Like emotionally, you know, administratively, it must, you know, it seems like it might take a not take a toll, but you know, it is pretty strong decisions you need to make, you know, as a business owner. So how was that
Man, Randy, you
experience?
didn't say I was going to be in my fields today. I'm just kidding. So
I'm sorry.
I'm
I
going to
feel
be,
like, you know, that's the part that people don't talk about in business. Like, you want to go into business, but we're all human, right? We're all human. And I feel like sometimes you can't detach your emotions. But for me, it's important because it helps with how you run your company.
yeah, no, I actually applaud you for doing this because most podcasts, whatever business, they only talk about the good stuff, the highlights and the success. And they really miss out on the bad side, the dark side of entrepreneurship, which is very important. So I'm going to be honest, last year, like I said, we really ramped up. Believe it or not, with e-commerce, we exploded. And with social media, we exploded last year. We got featured on BuzzFeed, on Tasty, Pero Like. We were on Bon Appetit magazine. And then since we shipped tortillas, we were shipping all over the place. And that's where we had a huge thing of growth. And, you know, that is also a huge headache, is handling it and then knowing on the back of your mind, how long is this going to last, you know? It's like,
Right.
do you buy a bigger oven or do you wait? Do you hire another person or what do you do? And so we were handling it for the most part as well as we could. And this year, like I said, we had a bit of a slowdown. I'm not gonna lie, I think towards the end of the summer is when it really all tumbled up on me, because just in May we had hired a full-time employee and I had to lay them off. And so it took a tumble, you know.
Yeah.
Especially me. I don't know. I can be a pretty caring, charismatic person, you know, and no one wants to tell someone that they're laid off. So it was tough for sure.
Yeah.
I remember, I think there was even one week where I told all my employees I laid off all my employees because I told them I just needed a week to get myself together. And, you know, the next week I worked pretty much by myself and I was just trying to figure it out. You're looking at your financials and, you know, I understand that, you know, some of my employees, they have families, they have people to feed. And at the end of the day, it's your business, you know, it's what the decision of your business. You can only be Mr. Nice Guy for so long. It sucks. I think everyone kind of learns it the hard way. And I've always been very close. I don't know. We've been very close with my employees. I've had the same ones since I started, honestly. And so 2 of the employees that have been with me the longest, they came back and they've been working with me again. And they've been very understandable. They understand, like, with the pandemic, you know, things have been really crazy. You know, some people are not able to have such a labor shortage. They can't keep up. And some other businesses are figuring out on how to cover costs. And so they were very, very understanding about it. And that was the amazing part. They've been very flexible. They understood. I told them, hey, there's going to be maybe one random day, like a Wednesday, we're probably not going to work until things kind of pick up. And I told them there's going to be days we're going to do things different. We'll sell tamales out of the parking lot if we have to, but we're going to stay alive. And they were very cool with it. You know, it's just like we're really family. And I think just being brutally honest, it can suck, but you'd be amazed how much people kind of get on board with it. You know, as long as you're a nice boss, I guess, people will stick with you as well. So it was hard, you know, and the toll on me mentally was really hard because I felt like we took 10 steps back, you know. It's just like, man, we had all this
Mhm.
momentum, we have the social media going, everything, and then boom, it's just like we had to downsize on everything. And at the same time, I guess maybe I was a little harder on myself than anything else, but then it just really clicked in my mind. I was like, okay, I don't have any major debt. If like all sales were to close tomorrow, like I don't have any huge accounts receivable. So I called the two accounts receivable I had. I told them what I was going through, and I told them, hey, I'll get you guys covered. And we're just kind of going through some downsizing, and everyone was very understanding about it. You know, we cut back on advertising to try to save some pennies, and we just started
Yeah.
doing more organic content. You know, we started doing more lives, we started going to Instagrams, we would collaborate with other businesses. Like we'd go there, show up with the tortillas, and they'd make tacos with them, because it just really, it's very true about when your back's against the wall, you can become very creative. You know, it's crazy. Within 2 months, we bounced back. Like we had everything paid off, and my employees are working almost the same hours they were. So, and business has been picking up a little bit now that it's getting colder, and with Pinole Atole and Champurrado season, and then we have been selling tamales. So it just makes you be
Yeah.
creative. And it's just a setback. But I think now with the pandemic, it's become more and more understandable. Obviously, you know, we're all humans, and you get judged for every damn bad thing you do. But
Mhm.
this is reality. This is the dark side of entrepreneurship. You talk to any entrepreneur, they've gone through something. They either split with their business partner, or a bad deal, or something happened that just, you know, gave
Right.
them
Right.
a punch in the gut, and they had to find a way to bounce back. And that's why when they tell you only 80% of startups survive after the first 3 years, it's because of that. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it says businesses don't close because of bad business. Businesses close because the founder gave up. And that is absolutely right. Because
Yes, I
that's
agree.
exactly what happens, you know. And I'm gonna be straight with you. It crossed my mind. I was just like, man, am I gonna shut the doors? And should I look for a job? I picked up one or two little side gigs just to get things going. So I went
Hmm.
and helped my dad do construction for a weekend. So yeah, you just gotta make it work.
Yeah. You know what? That reminds me of, because, so my tax business, it's not my first business, to be honest. So I actually was doing some photography right after college because I double majored in sociology and art, and my emphasis in the art major was photography, right? So I started doing like weddings and quinceañeras and stuff, and then my friends started reaching out to me to do like little red carpet events in Hollywood. And you're right. You're 100% right. I, at one point, decided this is not what I want to do, right? Like, I don't want to work on the weekends. All these quinceañeras and weddings are always on the weekends, type of things. So, because if I would have continued, I don't know what kind of photography I would be doing now. Would I be doing a little bit more high fashion stuff, or would I be still doing wedding photography but charging those big prices like the $8,000-$10,000? You know what I mean? So I 100% agree with you in the podcast that you heard, because a lot of times when people shut down their companies, or like that I've worked with before, at all the different tax firms I worked at, it's a personal decision that they make, or something that they don't want to deal with. I hate saying the word deal because it sounds like it's such a bad thing to do. It is a decision someone makes. So the fact that you have grit and you decided like you needed to continue, and even that you are a good boss, or that you have feelings and that you understand, people are making their livelihood off of your idea. Your idea is now providing income to these families, right? So you're providing a way for them to sustain themselves, which I think is amazing, because have 5 employees last year. Now you have two. Like, I would rather have you have 2 employees and sustain those two incomes moving forward, because yeah, you're right. There are upsides and downsides, but honestly, dude, I feel like that's the part people don't talk about. Everyone talks about like start a company and make money, make a lot of money, right? There's cash flow issues, or even payroll. Will you be able to meet payroll next week? And so even myself with my company now, I've taken the role of very slow organic growth. And I could have just been like, I want to grow and be a big CPA firm, but I don't, because I want to provide that quality of just taking care of my client. If they shoot me an email, I want to be able to respond within a timely manner. I've worked for guys where like they would never respond to any of their clients because they just had too many, or if they were responding to one, the others were left behind. So it is a give and take, but like you said, an unnecessary like evil part of being an entrepreneur. But that's what we're here for, right? We're here to talk about the goods, the bads, and everything in between. So I do have other questions for you. We're talking about the pandemic. So how did that shift your company? So I guess you're saying, there was a burst, but like, can you provide a specific example of what was happening? Like, were you expanding your product line during the pandemic, or had all of that happened beforehand?
Man, 2020. Where do we begin? I remember January and February was kind of slow. And my professor that I mentioned that she had brought up, that she was the one that kind of convinced me to even start Pinole Blue. She believed in me. I remember her family is from Taiwan, and she had told me, hey, there's this virus going around in Asia. It might sweep here. You might be ready. You might be wanting to get ready. And I was like, man, what do I do? I was like, we're already slow. She's like, just stock up on inventory. And I'll never forget this. I told her, when is Sam's Club ever going to run out of rubber gloves? We'll be fine. Well, yeah. I still remember March like it was nothing, because that's when we decided green corn tortillas de nopal for St. Patrick's Day. There was going to be a bar crawl downtown. I mean, we had, I don't remember, like 150 kilos of green tortillas ready to go to the bars. And bam, the shutdown happens. I will never forget that weekend.
Yeah.
We're stuck with all these tortillas. I went to Sam's Club. There was no gloves. Excuse me. And I was just like, what are we going to do? So I took her advice. I still stocked up on corn, on everything we could, on the raw ingredients, protective equipment. And all those green tortillas, we literally cut them up and made them chips, and I donated them to the homeless shelter. That's what I did, because we had nothing to do with them. We couldn't do anything else with them. And then at that time, we were mostly wholesale. We had 300 wholesale accounts in 18 different states. We were, we were in running stores, to coffee shops, to carnicerias, panerias. We were in everything. And it just started slowing down. I mean, the restaurants started closing. I'm just like, what are we going to do? So that's when I was like, you know what, just to survive, let's sell food out of the parking lot. And we were selling enchiladas, tamales, just to go. And at that time, my business partner's like, hey, Eddie, I think you should start a TikTok account. And I was just like, TikTok? I was like, that's for kids dancing. He's like, no, try it. So we made our first dang TikTok video, and it hit 400,000 views right out of the bucket.
What?
It was crazy, like nuts. We had people emailing and calling, how can I get your tortillas? Do you ship? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember it was like a Thursday, and by Friday, I'm calling FedEx. I'm trying to set up an account. And by Monday, like, we ramp up our e-commerce. We actually had it a lot way easier. And then we started figuring out how to ship frozen tortillas with an ice pack. And we shipped it to mostly e-commerce, and we just started making content on TikTok. And I think it was just like a dark time, where apart that everyone's bored at home, is just like we were just explaining what makes our tortillas different, what we do, what we come from, and how we donate back. And that's when it was a huge spike of attention, because we had, a lot of the young people were watching the videos, first, second, third generation, and showing and then we noticed they would show their moms or their abuelitas, their uncles, their tias. The videos are like, look, tia, this crazy dude's making blue tortillas with this like grinder. What is this? And then the tias would be like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a blue tortilla in years. And then they would order from us. And the same thing with pinole, natole and champurrado being kind of like a comfort food. So
yes.
So we kind of rode the wave, to be honest, and then we got noticed by a lot of other people, and then we started collaborating with food influencers también that wanted to collaborate with us. We would do videos and cosas así, and like I said, in August when we were on BuzzFeed and Tasty, that was huge. Everyone's seen our videos, and we continued with it. I don't even think we dropped any new products. I think maybe and back in February we brought back the pink corn tortillas that we had made a year before for breast cancer awareness, but we made them in February for Valentine's Day. And that was a big hit también. And then now we finally expanded with the champurrado. But that's what I suggest a lot of people, it's just like start a TikTok account. Even if you're just a little mom and pop taqueria, like you'd be amazed. Like we'd go to restaurants and we'd do highlights on them with our blue tortillas, whatever. And there's people from out of state driving down just to come try these restaurants.
That's awesome. So your success has led to other success in other businesses because they're using your product.
Exactly. And they're getting noticed también, which has been really incredible. And then the other thing too is there was a while, I think during the pandemic también, a lot of people were wanting to start businesses, and it was crazy how many emails and messages I would get, especially from the Latinx community. They're like, "Hey, Eddie, I am inspired what you want to do. I want to start my abuelita's tamale business. What tips do you have?" And this and that. And it got to the point we did a couple podcasts también, and then we started
Mm-hmm.
interviewing people, and then we would go live with my professor if they had any questions. And cosas así, and we kind of built our own community. You know, that was the power of the internet. That we still have. I have really close influencer friends. Never met them in person, but we collaborate all the time.
Wow. That's so funny because before the pandemic, so many people would want to meet in person and actually, I mean, it's not like you need to touch the other person or anything like that, right? You're just like, I want to know what this person's all about. Like this, how am I going to do business with someone I've never met before? One of the things that the pandemic did for my business was force a lot of clients who were not willing to go virtual with me to go virtual, right?
Yeah, and
So
paperless probably.
yes, and paperless and all that good stuff. It's more environmentally friendly, it's more sustainable. Like here's the thing, like I would probably say like 15-20% of my clientele always wanted to see me year after year in person. And I'm totally okay with doing that because I love hanging out with people and I'm such a social person, right? And I love working with my clients. When they wanted that, I'd be like, okay, but that 15-20% was resistant to doing anything online because cyber attacks or stories they hear, just anything in general, really. And a lot of my clientele, the biggest base is Latinx, is Latino, Latina. And we're so used to doing taxes in person. You show up to this little shop by your house, you sit down, you wait for them, they do your taxes in 30, 45 minutes, whatever it takes them to do it. And then they turn it around, they tell you these are your final numbers, right? But the thing about that is, like, I keep telling my clients, like, look, you send me the stuff, I work on it, I need a week and a half, and I go back, I check my work, and then I triple check my work because at the end of the day, like, it's a better service I'm providing to you versus if you come and you show up to me and I do it to you, I do your return in less than an hour. Because there'll be typos, there'll be like, instead of punching in a 50, I punched in a 500 because when I was punching in that last zero, you turned around and asked me a question and I had to go look at you. You know what I mean? So the human error element for my business, I think, has been kind of dealt with because of the pandemic. But I feel like it doesn't matter what business you're in, the pandemic affected everyone in one way or another. But I'm glad that, like, you are definitely still in business and you're still providing jobs for your employees. So I commend you for that because it's not easy. And that's why I wanted to ask about how that experience was for you, because I don't think too many people talk about that, to be honest. And that's it's part of being an entrepreneur. And I don't want to lie to people either, but I don't want to discourage people either, right? Because where there's a will, there's a way. And that's what I feel like. If there's a problem, there will always be a solution, no matter if you find it now or if you find it 5 days from now, 5 months from now, or in the next year, right? Trial and errors. That's what I always say. But yeah, so okay, moving along, because I wanted to talk to you. So you mentioned actually that your professor helped you out a lot. Was this one of your business professors in school?
Yes, it was one of my business professors, and she actually is still one of my mentors. We still stay in touch. She's my advisor now. But believe it or not, she's actually Taiwanese. Like, she's not even Hispanic, has no idea what even Pinole was. But I always go back and sometimes and ask her, and she says she still remembers when I went into her office, because before that class, there was a student organization on campus, and it's kind of like a consulting group on campus. It was for business students, and I applied every year, and I didn't get in until my senior year. All my friends were in it, and I finally got in. And then part of being in there, you had to take one of our classes. It was a data analytics class, and part of the class is to have a one-on-one meeting with her. And I was like one of the only seniors. And I walk in, and obviously the question is, what are you going to do after graduation?
You're like,
don't you love that, right?
Good question.
I know. And I looked at her, and I actually studied abroad in Mexico City. Me fui al Tec de Monterrey, Ciudad de Mexico.
Oh, fun.
I was there for 6 months, and I just came back because it was my junior year. I went and then came back for senior year to finish here. I was just lost. Like, I'd been interning at accounting firms. I thought I was going to minor in accounting. I worked a tax season actually at an accounting firm. I worked for one of the biggest private companies in the world as a data analyst, and I was just like,
Yeah.
and I come back and I'm applying these jobs and nothing. And I was just like, what am I going to do? And anyways, like I told you, the Pinole idea. And I just
Yeah.
told her, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have this crazy idea. And she's like, what is it? And I told her the Pinole idea. But I told her about the Taromaras, or how I wanted to give back, about my family, and blah, blah, blah. And she just fell in love with the story. She's like, Eddie, if myself, that has no idea what this is, fell in love with the story, I think as long as if you can share it, you will be okay. And so she believed in me. And like I said, I was just like, man, this lady, I was like, this lady's crazy enough to believe in me, and I'm crazy enough to start it. So let's do
it. You're like the blind leading the blind. Let's do it.
I know.
You know,
you should have seen my parents. They were a different story when I told them que iba a dejar todo to grind corn. I mean, they were just freaking out.
They're like, we did not come to America for you to start grinding corn.
Oh, they were mad. Thankfully I went to school on a full ride scholarship, so I didn't cost them any money on that part. But they're like, man, look at what you've been doing. As being son of immigrants, they want to see you like in a secretary job, wearing a suit and blah blah blah. They didn't want to see you covered in corn dust, working late nights and going up and down. That's what they want to see, and that's how it was. But once they saw how much demand there was and people were understanding about it, and I would even take my dad on some sales calls with me, and even he was impressed. And now, with the media and everything being on the news, I know they're super proud of me, and they've told me, like, especially for my mom, that she's been amazed how I've been able to share the story of our family, being in a rural area, and me growing up in a small town, in a rural town in Kansas, and the fact that Pinole is going all over all 50 states, and we're expanding into everywhere. We're making cookies, we're making coffee shops, believe in Pinole. It's just something that is so old school, and now it's becoming such a thing again. And my mom she said that's been like the most proud moment for her, to see how I've been able to do it and to still tie in the family. If you watch a lot of our videos, especially when I went to Mexico, I was recording my tios making the queso and chasing the cows y todo eso, and I think that's been a big one too. But yes, to circle back with you, she was my business professor, and she still helps me, and she's my advisor.
That's amazing. We gotta give thanks to her, because now that I've been out of school for quite a bit, I'm not gonna say how long, but
you're good.
I now believe, and I truly believe 100% in my heart, that if you have the opportunity to start a business after undergrad or after your graduate studies, and you can sustain yourself without having to create that income immediately, then it's probably one of the best times for anyone to start a business, because you really don't have debt or obligations. You might not be married, or you might not have kids, so you have the time to invest into your business. Whereas I see that there's people who do want to start a business once they're married, they have kids, and this is not to say that they can't or that they won't, right? Because sometimes that's a really big motivating factor that makes them start their business, but it is just going to be 3-4 times much harder. Whereas right now, and when I came out of undergrad, I didn't have that mentality, right? And I didn't have someone who said, like, continue doing what you're doing. Because if I would continue doing photography, who knows where I would be at right now, Or if I would continue doing any of my other business ideas, I would not be doing taxes, right? But that's the thing. I think that you were young, and you have a lot of grit, and you have a lot of like time to invest in your company. Because really, sometimes, I feel like it's really the time we invest in our companies that really makes the company what it is, right? Definitely. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. And one more question, because we're about to get to the final two. And I know you mentioned it earlier. Maybe we can mention it one more time for the listeners. I was going to ask you, do you recommend a book or a quote that inspired you? I know you recommended a book and a Netflix series. Could you talk or just mention those one more time?
Oh, yeah. Well, those ones are just more explaining about Taromaras and Pinole. But the book Born to Run, very good book. Even if you're not a runner, just read it or audiobook it. It's really good. It talks about a journalist who went down to Chihuahua to study the Taromaras. That's why like so many shoe companies were trying to make the minimalist shoes, but that one's good. And then Lorena Ramirez, the Ultra Foot Woman on Netflix. One book I always recommend to people. I don't even think if you want to be an entrepreneur, honestly, it's just a good book. It's about the founder of Tom's Shoes. It's called Start Something That Matters by McCoskie. He's the guy that started Tom's Shoes.
Okay.
That was a really good book. I read that right before I started Pinole Blue, and it was just impactful because, like I said, it's not so much starting a business. I think it really just drills on, what do you want to do with your life? But it's not one of those other like cheesy career books. It's different. It's really good. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight talks about Nike. That one's really good también. People say I'm boring because I only read business books, but those are really good. The How I Built This podcast is also really, really good.
Oh, you say it's called How to Build This
How I
Podcast?
Built This. It's a podcast by NPR.
Oh, got it.
They interview other entrepreneurs, and that's why. And the lovely thing about it is they always ask about the struggles, and they always hit the dark side of entrepreneurship. Y por eso I'm already a fan of your podcast because you highlighted it as well. So kudos to you, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And you know what? I love NPR. I listen to that daily. It's funny because sometimes we go on trips, like we're little small road trips here in California with friends or family, and my morning routine is to drink my coffee and to listen to NPR. Everyone in the car is like, we're on vacation, and I'm like, give me 30 minutes or give me 45 minutes, and like I force them to listen to it, and then I'll be like, okay, we gotta switch it over because this is a fun time, right? We're supposed to disconnect. Maybe I'll check it out, definitely, because I feel like that's the thing. The other reason I wanted to create this podcast was because I grew up in a family where there wasn't entrepreneurs, right? And I knew they were out there, right? And myself going to business school for my master's and then working with a lot of businesses, preparing their tax returns and advising them throughout the year, I kind of just felt myself feeling extremely lonely. Like I didn't see other people that looked like me or sounded like me or had the same background as me when I was working with these business owners. And maybe that was in the beginning of my career, because towards later in my career, like I have some, I want to say maybe like 90% of my businesses that I work with now, they're all LatinX entrepreneurs, right?
Awesome.
So there's a lot of us out there, but we're all working in different silos. I think part of it is because we're on different fields, right? So we're all experts in different items, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast, because I want to highlight these stories and I want other people to see themselves. Because I always take it back to Mexico. I'm always like, well, there's business owners in Mexico, right? I was like, there's like poor people, rich people, middle class people in Mexico too, right? So I've always had like this business mindset myself, but I've always felt like in my immediate family, I didn't have it. So now that I feel that we're here, there's a big chunk of us here, but the US is so big, we're spread out. I don't want people to think that they're alone in this journey. So that's how I felt.
No,
I do want to thank you.
That's very powerful.
Yeah. And I do want to thank you for sharing your story, because I feel like you're one guy in Wichita, Kansas, right?
Do you even know where Wichita, Kansas is, Randy?
I'm going to be 100%, maybe not. I know that there's 2 Kansas, right? Cities, but that might be different than what you're talking about.
I'm 2 hours from Kansas City, so if you ever end up in Kansas City, make sure you come by Wichita.
Okay, no, I'll let you know for sure. But yeah, I know there's a big Latino population out there, because one of my friends' girlfriend has her family moved out there about like 10 years ago. So they've been there for a minute, and then the rest of her family moved there. But I know there's a Hispanic population out there, so for sure, definitely, it's on my bucket list. I love traveling, so I just need to make it a destination.
Okay.
And if you're ever in LA, actually, now that that you mentioned that, I know that you mentioned that in Los Angeles, you are in one of the very, very famous Mexican grocery stores here in East LA.
Yes, good thing you reminded me. We are finally now in the OG La Princesita tortilleria, and also the La Blanquita. And I believe we're in all their little stores. We're selling our pinole and our azulitas, our blue corn sugar cookies. Mm-hmm. This is great. It's a good start. I know for you it's hard to imagine, but just the fact that growing up in a town of 1,000, not even a gas station, and I come to Wichita State, and my family being from ranchos, man, I got uncles that still don't even have like running water, and they're just running on solar power. And the fact that we're making pinole that is now in like places like LA and in these cool coffee shops. We had a coffee shop down in Santa Ana también, and one in Portland, and we got a coffee shop in Arizona, and all over the place. Like the fact that something so small like this started from nothing, and it leaves this location where I'm sitting at right now and goes all over. It just mind blows me sometimes. And I always
Yeah.
tell people, and I love that you touched that growing up, you didn't see other entrepreneurs. And one thing about my parents is they still don't speak English. And my dad works for a company that does road construction. He does a little concrete on the side, but he's never been able to start a business because he didn't know the laws. He didn't know the language. And same thing with my
Yeah.
mom. She cleans a manufacturing plant. She used to clean a manufacturing plant. And she always wanted to start a cleaning business, but she never did either. So that's the thing with Pinole Blue. I know for my parents, they're both very proud because it's like the business that they were never able to own. And it's been very powerful. And I think now with Pinole Blue, I tell people it's kind of like we're uniting cultures and people of all backgrounds through food, and especially
Yeah.
bringing something so ancestral like these corn products. And so it's been an amazing journey, and that's why I always tell people, like, no matter where you're from, it's possible. Like, if Eddie from a damn rancho was able to make it like this, trust me. I meet these kids from like LA and everything, and you guys have like AP classes and college credits and all this. I'm like, our damn school didn't even have a damn calculus class. Like, I'm just
Oh,
like, you guys
wow.
are like
Yeah,
20
yeah.
steps ahead of what I am. Like, so
Wow.
everything is possible. And I think especially kids now with the social media todo, like, and growing up in a small town, like there was no one that looked like me. So I think now I look at it very actually beneficial on my side, because
Yes.
I can go into meetings where I'm the only Hispanic and it doesn't bother me because I'm so used to it. And I can go into a carniceria and talk to someone and it doesn't bother me either because it reminds me of my family, my parents. So it's been very beneficial. So I always tell people try to get as much experience because you just never know.
Right.
And so it has been incredible. And so, yes, we are finally now in LA. We hope to continue to expand. The tortillas, hopefully we continue to expand también. It's also been also really cool to see how many other little like tortillas are popping up. And every once in a while they tell me, like, honestly, Eddie, you inspired me. I love what you're doing. And it's just cool. The other day, a month ago, I was down in Austin crossing the street, and this guy looks at me and he's like, "Hey, are you the blue guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "I love your products, man."
That's awesome, dude.
You
People are
know,
recognizing you. Yeah.
I was at a farmer's market in Salinas, California, selling pinole, and I had 3 city councilmen come visit me because they heard Pinole Blue was going to be in town, and they all followed Pinole Blue.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so good. I was
Yeah.
thinking about your company last night because I was just like, okay, what does this company do? Right? Your company, your base product is corn, blue corn, and the products from that product, right? So like tortillas and everything you mentioned. But I was thinking your company is like a cultural bridge between these foreign products that we are so used to and accustomed from our hometowns back in Mexico, but we're able to have them here, right? So I feel like your company is providing that bridge, that connection for people that otherwise they would not be able to have. Because let me tell you, LA is a very specific market, and yeah, there's tons of people from Mexico here, but there's Mexicans all over the US. So part of the thing that I was thinking about was like last night is that you're like a bridge. Your company is the bridge that's allowing these Latinx communities in the US to continue the traditions. They might alter a little bit, but they might differ nowadays because we're a new generation. We're millennials and whatever else generations come after us. But no, I just wanted to thank you for that. And also, thank you for coming on the show because it's been great stuff that you provided here today.
Man, that was so beautiful. I had to write it down. That was good. Thank you. I'm dead serious. I just wrote down that I've never heard about it that being that way, and I think you were pretty spot on. Like I said,
Yeah.
especially when I was kind of going through those hard times, that's when I was noticing, like, because I was that honest. I messaged to some of the influencers that I'd already talked to before, and I was like, hey man, like things are a little tough. Me puedes echar la mano, and that's the great thing about our community. We come through when we need it, and a lot of them are like, yeah, send me some products, I'll give you a shout out, and it's been crazy. One time I sent an email blindly to even Felipe Esparza, the comedian, and he responded, and I sent him pinole, and he posted on his Instagram story. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's that kind of help that sometimes you need. You don't need like monetary help or, sometimes you just need that that community, that push that, once someone sees it, other people jump on board with the idea. And so hopefully, I always say, if anyone's listening out there, I don't know why, but maybe it's just like my humble Mexican side here. But, hopefully we're able to inspire generations, and even people that are listening to the podcast, but even to start their own businesses, even if it's not the same industry you're doing, they might be looking to starting a different import export business. So yeah, no, thanks so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
Not a problem, Randy. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the support, and can't wait for this to come out so we can share it on our platforms as well.
Yes, of course. And we'll be in contact soon. So have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your network. Your support helps our LatinX business community grow stronger with every listen, and I truly invite you to connect with us. Send us your questions, your comments, or even your own business stories to randy@rgtaxes.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep building your business, and keep growing your business mindset.